So as the computer is being reconnected, let me introduce you also to another co-PI of the center, Nora Newcombe, Nora directs the NSF Silk Center at Temple. And Nora is going to lead a session, our final session, as it pertains to cognitive science on spaced assessment. And she has with her Henry Roediger, sorry, and Sean Kane, did I say that right? From Dartmouth. And they will, if you could come up here in the meantime.
Well, maybe one at a time, because you can't see the other person's slides if you're at the front.
Okay.
So come up when you're going to present.
Okay.
In 1 second, I'm going to say a couple of things as soon as we find the introduction, and then we'll have to recable your computer, assuming you're using your own, or? Oh, it's on here too, okay.
Nikki needed to show simulation.
Oh, okay, I see, okay.
And,
Okay, great.
okay.
Great.
Okay.
Oh, I think so. Oh, so. Got it. Okay. So Silk is not just at Temple, it's also at Northwestern and the University of Chicago and Penn and a myriad of other smaller subcontracts. But I was involved in this center as a sort of separate, a completely separate endeavor. And I think that Joe Merlino assembled a team of cognitive scientists based on initially living in Pennsylvania. We had this idea. We were going to work on the Holt curriculum, which is used in the School District of Philadelphia, and the Foss curriculum, which is used in Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh is a much smaller city than Philadelphia, so we had to have other Foss schools. And our initial idea was the state of Delaware uses Foss, so it was all going to be really pretty local. Unfortunately, Delaware turns out to Delawareize its curriculum in a way that made it impossible to use, which is how come we ended up in Arizona. But anyway, my main point is that, Chris Massey had priorly done work on misconceptions and conceptual challenges, and Chris Shunn had priorly done work on analogies and contrasting cases, and Jennifer and I were working on visualizations and learning from diagrams. But nobody in particular was working on spaced assessment, and I do not work on spaced assessment. So sort of as a utility player here, I am just delegated to point out that indeed this is a very important kind of principle. It was already embodied in an existing IES practice guide. This table will be very familiar to many of you. And we were encouraged. I remember Liz Albro very specifically saying, well, in your enthusiasm for these other principles, you should not forget that there is an IES practice guide, and why would you not embody what we already know from cognitive science about these kinds of principles into your intervention? So we went ahead and we zoomed in on some of these recommendations, spacing learning over time being one of them, using quizzing to promote learning, and there were sort of subparts to this. You will see actually in an hour or so how we incorporated this into the intervention that we did. However, as you've seen in the first 3 sessions, research proceeds in parallel to our design of our intervention 5 years ago. So the fact that there was an IES practice guide, these conclusions have not been undercut. I believe they've been, if anything, strengthened and reinforced, but more research has been done along these lines to give us more knowledge of how to use these principles. So it's actually one of the things we will want to talk about at some point, maybe tomorrow morning, of how when you do a big randomized control study, research keeps getting ahead of you, what exactly that's telling us and how we work with that fact. But all I want to do right now is to tell you about two of the people who have very much been responsible for pushing forward the research agenda on these kinds of topics. So we're going to hear first from Roddy Roediger. I took this material from his rather beautiful website, which tells you that he has worked for many years on topics in memory and in cognitive psychology, and more recently, as many of us have become more translational, has come to apply those ongoing interests to the task of improving education. And our second speaker is going to be Sean Kung, who worked with Roddy as a graduate student and who went on to work with Hal Pashler as a postdoc, and who is now in his first independent position at Dartmouth. So very much with Sean, you see how this research is going forward into the future. So first Roddy, and then Sean.